During the late 20th century, there was a man named Aldrich Ames, and this is his story. Aldrich Ames, also called Rick Ames, was a CIA agent who later became a double agent for the Soviet Union. The impact of Aldrich Ames was one of tragedy and triumph since he compromised the safety of several CIA agents and aided the KGB, but was eventually caught and prompted the CIA to take greater security measures when hiring agents. At the time, the Cold War had been going on since the Soviets sought to maintain control of Eastern Europe and spread communism throughout the world, while this was exactly what the Americans feared. Tensions increased from the Cold War in 1962 when the Soviets went to Cuba and began to secretly install missiles that could be used to attack cities in the U.S. The Cold War lasted for around 45 years, and the Central Intelligence Agency, also called the CIA, played a key role in it. After its establishment, the CIA was a major source of America's information during the Cold War. After all, it was the CIA that discovered that Cuba had Soviet missiles pointed at the United States. Starting from a young age, Ames had been involved in the CIA as he was the son of a CIA analyst and got a summer job there as a records analyst in 1957. He later became a CIA trainee in 1962 and went on to be a CIA case officer who was able to speak Russian and specialized in the Russian intelligence services, including the KGB. As for why Ames decided to get involved with the KGB while he was a CIA agent, Ames had a rough history including alcohol abuse, a divorce, and financial problems. Ultimately, the financial pressures caused by his divorce provoked him to become a double agent. In a 1998 interview conducted by CNN, Ames admits his motives behind committing espionage.
Well, the reasons that I did what I did in April of 1985 were personal, banal, and amounted really to kind of greed and folly. Simple as that.
On April 16, 1985, Ames went to the Soviet Embassy in Washington, D.C., and in exchange for $50,000, he sold the names of two KGB officers secretly working for the FBI to a KGB officer named Chuvakin. The following month, Ames gave up the names of all the Soviet intelligence officials and military officers who he knew were secretly working for the U.S. and anything else he knew about the CIA operations against Moscow. In September of that year, shortly after he married Maria del Rosario Casas, the KGB gave him a $2 million wedding present in exchange for his findings. Ames, without any prompting or request by the KGB, again met with Chuvakin on June 13, 1985. He gave Chuvakin copies of documents about the identities of over 10 top-level CIA and FBI agents from the KGB who were spying for the U.S. Then, in the July of 1986, Ames was transferred to Rome, Italy, where he continued his relations with the KGB through his new Soviet intermediary, Alexei Krenkov, who worked at the Soviet Embassy in Rome. Ames was able to escape suspicions from his colleagues because they thought that Ames was trying to develop Krenkov as an intelligence source.
He was in Rome, right?
He was in Rome 86 to 89.
86 to 89. And from everything I gather, the old grungy Rick Ames turns into the Swan. I mean, he gets better haircuts, gets his teeth kept.
Gets better glasses.
Gets better glasses, starts wearing expensive Italian suits.
That's right.
He told me...
The word I use is sleek. He becomes sleek.
He becomes sleek.
He never was sleek before.
At the conclusion of his assignment in Rome in the July of 1989, Ames received a note from the KGB with secret contacts in D.C., where he would be assigned next and with information about how much the KGB had paid him, which totaled to be $1.88 million. However, in the October of 1986, the CIA took its first step to resolve the 1985 compromises. The chief of the counterintelligence staff created a 4-person analytical group known as the Special Task Force to find the mole in the CIA. The team members were team leader Jean Fertifoy, Sandy Grimes, Diane Worthen, and Dan Payne. The CIA believed that a small team was preferable because it reduced the chance that the potential mole would be alerted about the investigation. Unfortunately, in the June of 1988, the KGB instituted its most elaborate ploy to direct attention away from Ames by having one of its officers pass information to the CIA about 5 of the cases Ames had compromised. This information suggested that the cases had been compromised due to the poor methods of spying on the part of the sources or the CIA officers involved, which created a stir within the CIA and resulted in time-consuming analysis for the next 2 years. On the positive side, in the November of 1989, a lead came to light that brought Ames to the consideration of the Special Task Force. Diana Worthen, a colleague and friend of Ames and his wife, noticed that he seemed to possess more money than his salary provided. Then, in 1991, the CIA conferred for the first time with the FBI about a possible mole inside the agency, and the FBI soon launched a large-scale probe under the code name Night Mover and made a list of suspects.
It was not until 91 when we said, we are going to give this one more shot. We're going to look at everybody who had access to those cases.
And you made a top 10 list, right? More or less. I mean, you made a list of suspects.
Right.
I gather you're the only one who had Rick Ames up at the top of that list.
I lucked out, yes.
What caused you to put him at the top?
When he came back from Rome in '89, he was a different Rick Ames.
Fortunately, in late 1991, in order to narrow its list of suspects, the CIA transferred Ames out of the CIA's Counterintelligence Division and into the Counter-Narcotics Division. In 1992, the FBI tapped Ames's phone and secretly installed cameras and bugs in his house and computer. By doing so, the FBI found out that Ames had lied about a personal vacation in October 1992, for he said he was traveling to Colombia to visit family, yet the bugs revealed his meeting in Caracas, Venezuela. FBI agents proceeded to catch Ames on camera during a meeting with a Russian agent in Caracas, but they waited to arrest him since they wanted to catch him while he exchanged information with Russian handlers. In the meantime, Sandy Grimes and financial expert Dan Payne began to analyze Ames's bank statements and financial records. In 1992, Grimes connected Ames's meetings with a Soviet diplomat to large deposits into his checking account, which confirmed that Ames was the mole. In the spring of 1993, the FBI took over the case since the CIA didn't have the authority to make arrests. In the February of 1994, the FBI, out of fear of never seeing Ames again, arrested him just as he was preparing to leave for Moscow. Ames was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole and is now serving his sentence at a maximum security prison in Pennsylvania. Overall, more than 30 double agents from the KGB working for the CIA and other Western intelligence agencies were betrayed by Ames, and he exposed hundreds of people of all nationalities. Also, he compromised at least 100 operations. On top of that, when Ames had sold the names of every Soviet intelligence official and military officer he knew was working for the US, many of them were arrested, had to flee Russia and leave their families behind, or were executed. However, after the Ames case, the CIA went through major changes. First of all, it increased computer security and improved its records management system. In addition, new policies for the quality of agent recruitments and agency managers were created. Component-level accountability boards within the Directorate of Operations and a senior directorate-level accountability board were also created. Furthermore, the National Counterintelligence Center at the CIA was established, which increased the application of counterintelligence to operations and deals with security and counterespionage. Overall, the actions of Aldrich Ames as a double agent for the Soviet Union led to several moments of tragedy and triumph. Ames is considered to be one of the most damaging spies to the U.S. in all of history, for he jeopardized the safety and security of countless individuals and operations. However, he paid for his actions with life imprisonment and made the CIA realize that it needed to take greater security measures to avoid another case like Ames.